Hi boys and girls. Okay, today I'm going to teach you how to weave a pouch. This is like a miniature pouch, just a cute little mini version that was made on a much smaller loom, homemade loom actually, that we learned how to do in a different video, which you could make at home. However, the one we're going to be using today is a little bit wider loom. I want to show you some, well, first I want to teach you a little vocabulary. The loom is the actual surface that's holding your string, and the string that we put on here is called the warp. So when I refer to warp, I'm talking about the string that is on the loom, and weft is the string that we're going to weave through. So you can see this person has woven yarn back and forth through the up and down ones here, the warp. So this part going across, that's their weft. Okay, so a couple of little things. I want to teach you first of all how to warp on. That's putting the warp strings on. This person ran out of string, so I just wanted to show you that they followed the directions for the most part. I tore off their name so you wouldn't know who it was. This is from last year. They didn't quite get finished. But they taped on their name and class code when they started. So that's the first thing you want to do. And then they started this, but they should have started here and warped on, which means you're going around and around and around until you get to the end and then tape it again. So they got started but didn't quite finish. They did at least do it correctly. This person, I wanted to show you this because this person warped only onto one side. This will not make a pouch. If you put your warp string only on one side, which is what this person did, they just were going up and looping around and then coming back down. That's great if you want to make like just a flat, maybe like a little mini rug or whatever. It's just going to be one layer. It's not going to be a pouch. Okay, so this is fine if that's what you were trying to make, but if for what we're doing, this would not work. Okay, so I'm going to put that one away because that is not what we want. And then I wanted to show you a couple of mistakes with weaving. So this person is doing a really good job. They've warped on correctly. They've got their warp strings on both sides. They taped and did not put their name and class code on here, however, so that's a problem. No name or class code. You need to make sure when you start that the first piece of tape, you write your name and class code so it's on there. You'll have two pieces of tape, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but they've taped the two ends of their warp string. This is a little bit of a loose warp. It should be maybe a little bit tighter than this, but overall this is pretty good. And I'm looking at their weaving, and they're doing it correctly. So each time they go across, it needs to be the opposite. And I don't know if you can see this, but on this warp string you can see this is over and the purple is under, and then if we look at the next one, I think it's a blue one, is over and the green one is under. So I'm going to pull this down so you can see that. This person's doing it correctly because each time it's alternating. The weft is over the warp here, it's under the warp. Over, under, over, under. This person, on the other hand, if we look at this first warp string, under, 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 they are not alternating, and so this is not going to hold. This is not a good example of weaving. Okay, they're doing the same thing over and over, and so none of these, when you push it together, like this is just going to fall apart when they go to take it off the loom. So they didn't follow directions. They did good on the warping part, but not on the weaving part. Okay, so what to do? Let me explain. So once you have this on and you've started weaving, eventually you're going to run out of string, and so I'm going to show you what to do when you run out of string. You're going to want to get more, and Mrs. Walker has prepared our yarn into little balls of yarn that are in these containers, so you can just grab one of those containers with the color that you're going to use and pull out probably, I don't know, whatever you think you can work with. You don't want it too long. You can keep tying on, so I'm just going to take that much. You're going to tie knots. Each time you go to tie on, you're just going to tie a knot, and if you know how to tie your shoes, you can easily make a knot. You're just going to cross one over top of the other, and then twist it around like I'm tying my shoe, right? Here I am, I'm ready to tie my shoe, but instead of tying my shoe into a bow, I'm actually going to cross it over again, and I'm going to pull that loop right through that little hole, and that'll tie a knot. Now that's one way to tie a knot. There's many ways here. That's just one, okay? And you don't have to worry about these strings sticking out. We're going to trim those later, so don't worry about trimming those off. They're fine. And then to make yourself kind of like a needle to weave with, to make it a little easier, you're going to take some tape and attach it to a popsicle stick. And what that will do is make it easier for you to weave, okay? You don't need much tape here. Actually, I grabbed way too much. You don't want it to be bulky because that makes it harder to get through, but you do want to put a little piece of tape here to hold the yarn down, okay? Now, looking at where I'm at right here, I'm already finished on this side, so I'm going to flip it over. And then every time you flip this over, I want you to look at what did you do the last time. And if you look closely, you can see that the purple weft is going over the orange warp. So I know this time I want to go under instead of over. I'm going to start with the under the warp string. Under, over. I got to set this down so I can pull this up. Under, over, under, over, under, over, and so on. Each time I'm just going to do under, over, under, over. And then you're going to pull it through. Now if you got too much string, don't get it tangled up, okay? Better to take less and just keep tying knots than to take too much and have a problem. Okay, so what I wanted to show you here is you can take a fork. You can either use your fingers or you can take a fork to push this down, but each time you do this, you want to pull it down nice and tight to your previous one, okay? And you're going to flip it over, and you can see I kind of loosened these up to show you what I was doing. All right, then I'm going to go back. Now I have to think about, before I start in, I don't want to waste my time and have to take all these stitches out. That's why I didn't tell you about this person. This person is going to have to take all of these out because every single one of these is wrong. They started out doing it correctly with the purple. It's just right with the purple, but as soon as they switched to pink, they did not do the correct thing. They kept doing the same pattern instead of opposite. So they'll have to do a lot of removal. If you don't want to do that, you're going to want to pay attention right here and right now. So right now, if you look at this closely, the red is on top of the orange, so my weft is on top, going over the warp. So I want to start under the warp. So I'm going to go under this orange one. The first orange one I'm under, the second one over, under, over, all the way across. And it's a little bit, this warp is just a little bit hard for me to get my fingers a hold of because it's thin. But there we go. And then I'm just going to pull it through. Like so. And you don't want to leave this, you don't want to leave a weird loop here. You want to pull all the way. And then make sure that you push it down before you flip over to the other side. You're just going to continue doing that until you get to about here. When you get to about here, you're going to stop going all the way around and you're just going to go back and forth across one side. And the reason you're doing that is so that you can create this flap, okay? You want a flap that will flip over, and I'll show you how to do that later. We'll actually leave a little opening here. This one I had to tie on a little piece to be able to do this, and I don't want you to have to do that. So I'm going to show you how to make a buttonhole, and then you'll be able to put a button on yours so that you can close it. Okay, but for now, everybody needs to work on just the weaving part. When you get 3/4 of the way, so if you think about this as half, 1, 2, another 1/4 of the way, then you're going to at least come and see me, and I will show you, I will add the next video to the directions here for those of you that are doing this project. Okay, if you do find that you can't find any more of the, if we run out of the little balls of yarn that are in these containers. Mrs. Walker does have some other yarn, but I do want to point out that if you are using this yarn, there's a special way to do it. On one end, there should be a string that's coming out of the end, and you just should be able to pull on that. If you mess this up, then this whole skein of yarn is going to be very difficult for us to use. Do not take the stuff on the sides. Just do not do that, okay? Only pull from the one end so that we don't get it all tangled up, okay? I guess I wanted to mention this too. Another thing you can do, if you, let's say I want to use this and someone else wants to use this, you can get one of these rings, and what these are for is to get, so I'm going to put it on the other side since I'm right-handed. I think it'll be easier to do here. This is just a way to save yourself. It's kind of like making a ball of yarn. You're gonna wind your yarn around here, and then you can just keep this with you. Keep this in your little, because you guys are going to be keeping these in a Ziploc bag with all of your stuff. You're just going to keep it in a Ziploc bag that has your name on a piece of paper. That way you can find it quickly when you're using it. All your stuff will be in there, whatever. If you have a little ball of yarn, you can put that in there, or you can put this in there. If the yarn is in one of these containers, I'd like it to stay in those containers. So those you'll just have to find the one that you're using. But this is how you can save some of the yarn out for yourself. Is just wind it around on here, and then when I get to the end, I can start taking yarn off of here when I'm weaving. Okay, so this is a way to get a little, kind of like a ball of yarn for yourself. Okay, to save for later. All right, have fun, be creative. I can't wait to see your finished pouches.